The farther removed we are from the life of Jesus, the more the mission of Jesus gets domesticated. It's been some 2,000 years since the historical Jesus lived and worked and enacted his mission of love and justice. And over these 2,000 years, we have made the message nice, in large part because, blessedly, here in the U.S., we do not live under threat of persecution for our beliefs. But the mission of Jesus has become nonetheless domesticated, and it's so easy to forget that there were very real and dramatic consequences for proclaiming God's love and peace and justice in an occupied Israel. It's easy to forget until we hear a reading like today's gospel. There is no way to romanticize or make nice the beheading of John the Baptist. It's quite gruesome. Today's reading fills in the details of the story for us, and it gives us a clear picture of the consequences of getting behind God, who is love, when the powers that be have a very different end in mind. It's also easy to go the simple route and separate the characters into good guys and bad guys. John, the good guy, on the side of Jesus, and Herod, the bad guy, because he ordered John's execution. However, Mark's gospel is brilliant in the simple and direct way it muddies the waters of this black and white thinking, this good guy, bad guy thinking. Mark tells us that Herod liked listening to John, and it is pretty clear that Herod was torn by his daughter's request. He could please his wife and daughter, or he could continue to protect John, knowing that John was a righteous man and had much to offer, and suffer the consequences in his home life. If there's any one thing we can learn from this reading, just at first glance, it's that the mission of Jesus was dangerous, and it had consequences. 3 years ago, the Episcopal Church in our General Convention adopted an official line on mission in the world. The mission of Jesus is the mission of the church, and there are 5 marks of mission. The first is to proclaim the good news of the kingdom. This is a bit ambiguous and subject to interpretation, which is good because it allows the good news of God's reign to make sense in each context and circumstance. Bottom line, however, is love and justice for all people, without exception, and in the name of God. The second mark of mission is to teach, baptize, and nurture new believers. Now, this is the important work that we do as a church. The third mark is to respond to human need by loving service. There are many ways to do this, everything from taking time to really hear someone, to supporting the work of the church and of other organizations who care for others. The fifth mark of mission is to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. From the time of our creation, a big part of our created by God identity is as stewards of creation, being the caretakers of this world that God has created. We have been entrusted with the care of this great planet, and what we do matters. Now, you may have noticed that I skipped the fourth mark of mission. I did so because more than any of the others, this mark of mission is highly charged and is evident in our gospel today. The fourth mark of mission is to seek to transform unjust structures of society. What is just and what is unjust is not always agreed upon, even among Christians, maybe especially among Christians. More than any mark of mission, the transformation of unjust structures requires community discernment, prayer, and effort. It requires a willingness to look beyond good guy, bad guy, black and white scenarios, and dig into the complexity of the structures that we seek to transform. We see it at play in Herod and John today. John, who is working hard to pave the way for Jesus, to make the good news of God's love and justice known and accepted, to turn the hearts and minds of the powerful away from self-serving antics and towards the reign of God, which is marked by a just, loving, and peaceful world. And then there's Herod, who knows in his heart that John is on to something important, that what John has to say needs to be heard and taken in and accepted. And yet Herod, when presented with a choice for justice or pleasing his wife and daughter, opts for the latter. Herod is presented with an opportunity to move toward love, and he can't quite do it. As much as we all have John the Baptist intentions, we all have the propensity toward a failure of nerve like Herod. We make bad decisions. We move away from what is good and loving and just and toward what will make us comfortable the quickest. It's grace versus gratification. And unless we've had our own hearts converted and changed, gratification often wins out. The real issue for Herod and for us as we consider these 5 marks of mission and what it means to be Jesus' missionaries in the world today is that it first starts with a conversion of our own hearts. Mission comes out of an experience of grace, not an intellectual understanding or an emotional desire, although those things can be part of it. But mission must come primarily out of a real experience of grace, of the way that forgiveness and love and peace and the presence of God frees our hearts from whatever it is that binds them. Herod had not had this conversion. He was close. He knew there was something important in John's words, but he hadn't quite gotten there. Has your heart been converted? Have you had an experience of grace that helps you to understand true power is in forgiveness and love and in the peace and presence of God? I hope and I pray that we all have many, many experiences of this kind of grace, because it is precisely this that makes the mission of Christ a powerful one, with the potential to change individual lives, families, and communities into places where the kingdom of God is not a far-off fantasy, but a reality of life in the here and now.